Hello. Today on the sermon, I'll be talking about the waiting room. My name is Tim Miyaki, and I'm welcoming you to another edition of the sermon. Today, I just want to ask this question: have you been to see a high-ranking government official, maybe a top-ranking politician, maybe a senator, the governor, the president, the director in a government parastatal, a general, just about anybody that is of importance that has an office, and then there's a waiting room where you have to go to wait. Probably you're on an appointment, or maybe you're not even on an appointment. You just stroll in there trying to get to see this person of importance. Now, perhaps you are looking for an opportunity, maybe a job, a contract, admission, just pretty much about any opportunity or any favors you're looking for. Now, you find yourself in the waiting room. Usually the reception. There is a waiting room before the main office space where you get to see this person of importance. Now, if you're familiar with this setting, a lot of us in Nigeria will be very familiar with this kind of setting. Now, if you're familiar with this kind of setting, you agree with me that the waiting room is a place of holding where you're held until such a time where when it is convenient for you to get to see the boss or see the person that you are trying to get to see. Now, I just want us to look at it in a very interesting way. Now, in the waiting room, there's so many things that happens in the waiting room. Now, if you're not conversant or you're not observant, you might miss so many things. But let me just draw attention to so many things that happen in the waiting room. Now, in the waiting room, there is anxiety, there is impatience, there is patience, there is pride, there is humility, there is arrogance, and then there is authority. There is submission, there is flight, and there's so many things going around, and in the waiting room. Okay. And now you see different characters of people in the waiting room, several kind of people. Those that feel they're in charge, and those that are submissive, and those that feel they own the space. Now, but there is one person of importance though that you cannot ignore in the waiting room, and that's the person or the secretary or the clerk or the assistant or whoever it is that is responsible for ushering you in to see the boss. That person is very, very important. And you cannot just barge in. That person, even though the person that is of authority, that is of importance, is there, it's of authority and is of importance as well. This person that holds sway in the waiting room is equally as important, because without this person's get go, you cannot get to even see the main person you're there to see while within the waiting room. Now, in the waiting room, you get to wait. That's all you do in the waiting room. You might wait for a long time or for a short time. It all depends on your kind of appointment, or whether you're even on an appointment list, or it depends on the kind of thing you want to see the boss for. Maybe something of importance, something of less importance. It all depends. You're all categorized into different categories. Now, something very important you need to notice, or I just wanted to draw attention again to, is that in the waiting room, you could be there and wait from morning till evening without seeing the person you went to see. And at the end of the day, you might have to leave without even seeing the person. That is the situation. Now, in the waiting room, you might be there for within an hour and you're seeing the person. Another person might just come within 5 minutes and they see this person and they walk away. Now, everyone that comes in there to see this person have different purposes and different reasons for seeing this person of importance. Now, your own purpose is completely different. It might even be the same, but the reason why you see this person at the end of the day differs. And it is very important for you to understand that while others come and see or come and wait for a short while, it doesn't really mean that they have more of importance than you. Probably they're seeing this person for something very minute. Probably they just are there for transportation. Maybe they just want money to feed. And probably you are there for a contract. Now, you might be there to possibly foster a better and a stronger relationship with the person, the boss, but they are there probably to just ask for little favors. You see, so these are different things. So do not, one thing you need to understand, number one thing you need to understand is that do not compare or envy anybody that comes and walks in quickly. Within few minutes they are there and they move. And because they might be there for a very minute and less important reason, and the boss might just want to just dismiss them and see people of importance, which you might fall into, that category you might fall into. Now, you might be there, and within a short time, you are seeing the boss. You might say it's luck, but everything around there revolves around how soon the boss wants to see you and how important the boss considers you. Now, sometimes you might sit there for the whole day and you don't get to see the boss. It all depends on how important you are or how important the matter you bring to the table. And the boss might even decide never to see you the whole day until you come again the next day. Now, all of this are the things that happen in the waiting room. And what you do in the waiting room is you wait anxiously. And every time anybody opens the door or the clerk raises, "Hello, who is next?" you might be hoping, you wishing you're the next person to be called in, and your hopes might be dashed. Anxiety and all of that. So the waiting room, you might just be there, burning time, checking your time. You're waiting, and that you can't wait. You're looking at the time and watching how time flies, and then you are entertained with the television. If you're lucky, you might be given water to drink, and that's all. And all this while you're just waiting for someone to see. Trust me, even the boss might even take an excuse and go somewhere else and come back while you're still waiting. And you might not know because probably you have an exit door from behind where you do not get to see them go. But what am I even trying to say? What I'm trying to say is this: in the waiting room, God has a waiting room as well. Yes, there is a waiting room for God. And in the waiting room for God, you will see that so many people come, and then within a short time, God has answered their prayers. And you might be asking for the same thing with alongside with some other people. You might be asking and knocking on God's door for a favor, and then asking God for a favor, the same kind of favor. Probably you're just asking for the fruit of the womb. You're looking for a child, and then somebody comes along and within a short time you're going to be wondering, but I've been here, God, all along, waiting on you in the waiting room for all this while. How come you haven't answered me? Now you do not know what their arrangements this person has with God. Just as it is with the normal arrangement in human, you do not know what conversations they have or what transactions or what relationships they are building. The same thing applies to you because you do not know what covenant God has with this person. So you cannot or you shouldn't assume that this person is more favored than you are. And that is why the person is ahead of you, or the person didn't even wait in the waiting room for too long. Look, you can be in God's waiting room for a week, for a day, for minutes, for hours, for years. All of this is determined by how on what God wants you to do. If God wants you to do a big project for Him and requires you to wait so that you can either build patience, you can either build perseverance, you can either build steadfastness, and then you can either build humility. God can decide to keep you in that waiting room for years. And until you build that muscle, God is not going to answer you. You're not going to be ushered in to see God, or you're not going to, that thing you're looking for from God, God might never answer you because He wants you to remain in the waiting room until you gain and learn all of this. Now, don't forget, like it is in the normal waiting room, there are temptations that may come that, look, this boss might not see me eventually. Why don't I just walk away? All right. So if you're tempted to walk away, you might just walk away, and that is when the boss is ready to see you. Now you see you've missed your opportunity. You've missed the chance to see the boss. And that thing you've been praying for, you've been longing for, and been looking for, you just missed it narrowly because you lack patience. And it's the same thing that applies to even God. There are many times when we're waiting on God to give us, to come true for us, or to do something for us, to answer a certain prayer. But because we are tempted to help ourselves, we just step out of this waiting room for just a while. Sometimes some of us even walk away and say, look, I'm tired of waiting. Let me just go help myself. Then that is when it is time for God to answer your prayer, and you'd have gone. You see, who is losing? Now, God never loses. It is us that keep losing, probably because we cannot wait in the waiting room. Some of us, when we get to the waiting room, we even forget what we are even there for. We meet other people that are in the waiting room waiting as well. Then we get into gisting. We get into chit chats. We get into making noise. We begin to gossip. We begin to make gestures and engage ourselves in vain and talks that is not even necessary, that is not important. Then, when it is even our turn to go see the boss, and our names are being mentioned, hello, team, you are next. But because you are so carried away in in fruitless conversations with others, you will not even know, or you wouldn't even hear when your name is being called, to go see the boss. Now that reminds me about certain incidents that happened to me at the airport when I was traveling, and then when it was time for boarding, they called all the flight was called. My flight was called, and we were called to board, but I didn't get to even hear. I was busy making noise with other people, engaged, listening to music and all of that. I was carried away, and the whole and all the passengers had boarded. I was the only person that was still in the boarding room waiting for my flight to be called. And then by the time I checked, I saw that time had gone like 10, 15 minutes behind schedule. I was kind of terrified. What else will I do? Then somehow I heard my name from the PA system. Is there Tim Miyaki in the waiting room? Please, if you are, the plane is waiting for you. You are the last person you're waiting for to board. And then grabbed my bag, and I jumped. I was screened quickly, and I went. I was ushered in. I came in like a VIP, and I joined. I was the only person, and when I came in, the whole crew were clapping at me. Congratulations, Mr. VIP! You're the one that kept the flight for 5 minutes, and I was like, whoa. Anyway, that's by the way. But what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is this: if you get carried away by things that do not matter, you might miss your chance when it is your turn to go see the boss. So when you find yourself in the waiting room of God, stay focused on why you're there. It might take you a longer time or a shorter time. It all depends on what you want from God. God can decide to answer you quickly, or He can decide to delay that response. Or God can decide to keep you waiting for long. But the onus is on us to wait. If you ever find your way to the waiting room of God, please wait patiently. Be patient, be focused, be steadfast, be humble, and just focus on that door. And be hoping and waiting, hanging on to that hope that very soon is going to be your turn. Now, no matter how many people go in there and come out, no matter how many people come within few seconds and they're seeing the buzz and they're out there smiling, it just doesn't matter. You just hang in there and wait. You just keep waiting on God. You keep waiting in the waiting room of God until such a time, such an appointed time, when your time is near. And probably, possibly, God is reserving that last minute for just you. He wants to dispense with other people, and because your case is so special, and because you're so special to Him, and He has a special project for you, He dismisses every other person so that He can have all the time now for you and say, my child, now is the time for us to talk. We have all the space. Nobody's waiting. Nobody's on my neck. This is just me and you. Can we have this conversation? And then you are ushered in, and you are having the whole time with your God, and you're having all the time with the boss, and you have all the things you have to say, and you're not in a hurry to make your point, and you just chill and just have a drink and have a talk and have an agreement and have an understanding, and there you have it. And that is the concept of the waiting room. So a lot of people do not even know their way to the waiting room. How do you get to the waiting room? A lot of people don't even have the connection to go to the waiting room. A lot of people don't even know that they need to be in the waiting room. A lot of people are even in the waiting room without even realizing they're in the waiting room. A lot of people are in the waiting room, but they do not even understand or realize that they are in the waiting room. But when you know that you are in God's waiting room and recognize that you are in God's waiting room, it is power and it is key. Just like they say, the prayer room. I am offering you the waiting room. And in the waiting room, you pray, you wait, you hope, you anticipate, and you trust God, and you have faith that you will get what you're looking for. The waiting room. May God give us the grace to keep waiting in the waiting room, because it is important to be found in the waiting room when the boss calls for you to be ushered in. You will not miss your chance in the waiting room. You'll find your way in the waiting room. You'll be patient in the waiting room. Your wait in the waiting room will not be in vain. You'll find fruitfulness in the waiting room, and you'll finally meet the boss, that is God, after waiting in God's waiting room. Find your way to the waiting room and stay in the waiting room till your prayers are answered. I love you so much.